Today, I'm at the July 28, 1864 Battle of Ezra Church in Atlanta, Georgia. This very ground I'm standing on will become a bloody battlefield. Ezra Church was the most prominent landmark on it. Ezra Church stood near the historical markers on this shallow ridge. Everyone agreed it was a small, unpretentious, and old building. In fact, the Prussian John Henry Otto of the 14th Corps wrote of it, a little log meeting house where the darkies used to congregate and sing their hallelujahs. During the battle, benches were taken out of the church and filled with knapsacks to serve as breastworks. They used anything that made a good defense against pieces of bursting shell and musket balls. After the Battle of Atlanta, fought July 22, 1864, General Sherman turned his attention to the Macon and Western Railroad, running southwest out of the city. It was the sole remaining supply line to the Confederates in Atlanta. He ordered Major General O. Howard to swing west of Atlanta and bear down on the rebel railroad. In Atlanta, General John Bell Hood was fully aware of Howard's march, and he had two corps en route to stop it. Lieutenant General Stephen D. Lee marched west along the Lick Skillet Road with orders to block the southward Federal thrust near Ezra Church. However, there was a problem with the plan. The Union Army had beat the Confederate Army to the vital crossroad junction. There, men piled up temporary breastworks and logs, fence rails, and other materials at hand and awaited the Confederate attack. Late on the morning of July 28, General Lee made contact with Howard's troops. Without consulting Hood, Lee decided to attack. The Battle of Ezra Church began right here in this field. At approximately noon, General John C. Brown's Confederate division began the battle by storming the Federal line. The high ground in this immediate area was occupied by Major General M. L. Smith's division, which formed the extreme right flank of the Federal Army. It was this exposed flank that the Confederates were attempting to turn. The Federals opened up, and from their hastily built works of log and stone delivered cruel effective fire. The repeated attack by the Southern units reached the Union breastworks and even managed to temporarily turn Smith's right flank until General Charles C. Walcutt's brigade, held in reserve, was called to supply two regiments. Smith's Federals held firm through several more hours of assaults. General Brown's attack began to fall apart. With a Union counterattack, the Confederate division commander sadly watched his men driven with great slaughter. At approximately 1 p.m., General Clayton arrived on the scene and hastily formed to the right of Brown's command. Brigadier General Randall L. Gibson commanded the lead brigade and took aim at the angle in the Union line. At first, the Confederate infantrymen had difficulty plowing through the brush. It was so thick one could scarcely get along, but they made it through to the open ground. As the brigade neared the fringe of woods lining the Union position on top of the ridge, it received heavy fire. One Confederate said, "We fought the enemy in a thick woods, and they were behind breastworks, and they mowed us down like grass." After fighting for some time, it was found there was no possibility of Gibson pushing his men any further. As he later reported, they hit an overwhelming force in a position splendidly adapted for defense and difficult of assault. Clayton now decided to send in Alpheus Baker's brigade, his reserve unit. The brigade aimed at the angle in the Union line, the exact spot that Gibson had just failed to break. The ground was literally covered with their dead and wounded. The Federals did some very effective work at long range, meaning that they continued to fire over the heads of their comrades and obliquely in places to strike Baker's brigade, just as he had attacked exactly where Gibson had tried to break the Union line. Now, Baker fell back to the same place as Gibson. The two divisions of Lee's Corps were through for the day, but not for Stuart's Corps. Determined to continue the attack, he hastened for Woodall's division. So the slaughter continued as Woodall's brigade advanced shortly after 2 p.m. over the same ground previously covered by Brown. Fierce musketry dropped the Confederates by the hundreds before they fell back, seeking what shelter they could. Stuart, riding forward to this hill, learned of Woodall's failure and soon struck by a spent bullet. Woodall succeeded Stuart and withdrew his division and ordered no further attacks. The Battle of Ezra Church was over. The Northerners fighting the defensive suffered fewer than 650 casualties at Ezra Church. Confederate casualties at Ezra Church would never be confirmed, but a reasonable estimate would be more than 5,000.